Pivot tables are very easy tools, but they have a lot of hidden secrets. If you don't know those, you only use the tip of the iceberg. Let me show you a few of those nice tricks. I assume that you know how to create a pivot table, so I did this one already for you, and I want you to know that sometimes you want to show these values differently. So in the latest version, you can go here, right click, and then show values as, and you have a whole bunch of options here, including more options. In older versions of Excel you do this through field settings. I'm going to do the difference from. In this case I'm going to say my base field is either the month or the sales rep. I'm going to choose the month. So I want to compare months with months, but the base item is not a specific month unless you want to compare it with a specific month because it's your worst or your best one. I'm doing the previous one. And at the moment I click OK, I will get whether things went up or down after each month. So if you want to see more clearly where the negatives are, you right click on any field, value field settings, number format, and make that negative number a different color or in parentheses or whatever you prefer, so then you can see better where the bad months are, where things went downhill. The next one I want you to see is how do you group information. Say I want this kind of structure, location, date of hire, and the sum of the sales. Insert a pivot table. It takes automatically the boundaries if you are inside the table, and we are going to put the location in the columns, the date of hire in the rows, and the sum of the salaries right there. And this is what we get. Now this is kind of messy. Let's say we want to group this. It's not very intuitive what's going on there. So we are going to group the date of hire by years. Right click on any date of hire, group and years, and take the months off unless you want both, and you get a much better overview. Now we are going to move seniority as a filter in there. So you go back, you grab seniority and move it into the filter setting, or the page setting as it's called in older versions. So now you have here the seniorities, but look, that is a messy thing. You would like to group it probably, but unfortunately you cannot group it there. There is no way of grouping it. So what I would suggest is, if you want that to be grouped too, move that into the rows. So we are going to move it from the filter to the rows, and I'm just putting date of hire in the filter this time. So once it's here I can group it, as long as it's numeric. So right click and group, and we are going to group it from group 1 through 25 in units of 5 years, and OK it. So now you can move it back to the filters. It will still keep that grouping option. So now I can see here all these options. OK it. OK, that's what we did there. Now a surprising situation. I have a formula in here that tells me when the amount is overdue because it hasn't been paid yet. So the formula is like this: if and at the same time the difference between amount and paid is greater than 0, that means there is an outstanding balance, take today's date minus A2, and if that is greater than 30 at the same time, then take today's date minus A2 minus 30, otherwise put nothing in there, double quotes, double quotes. That's the formula. So now we are going to make this overview. So we start, make sure you are inside the table. If you insert a pivot table, then it detects automatically where the boundaries are. And we are going to put the account in the rows, overdue in the columns, and the amount we will sum. And this is what we got. Notice that this is not very informative, so we are going to group that. As long as it's numeric, you can group it. So we are going to group it, and then it will tell you that it cannot group that selection, and you probably have no idea why. The problem is that the formula that we used here is not really a numbered result, because it uses at the end the double quotes. So I'm going to replace that formula and make it a real amount. So I replace the double quotes with a 0. And I accept that. Now I have a real number there. You still cannot group sheet 2. Why not? Because pivot tables by default do not automatically refresh. So I have to go to Analyze or Refresh or whatever you have on your system. Now it's refreshed. Now I should be able to group it. And we are going to do that, and we are going to group them. Group 1 through 45 in units of 5 years, and OK it. So another problem is that these values are the amount values and not what is still due. So we are going to replace this formula with a new formula. Field, items and sets, calculated field. In all the versions you right click on the numbers inside the table and choose a calculated field. Give it a name. I'm going to call it balance. The formula equals, delete the 0, you want the amount field, double click on it, minus the paid field, and that is a new field now. When I click on OK, you will see that things automatically update. The only thing now is that I still have the old sum of amount field, so I'm going to delete that either by selecting it and press delete, or right click on it and remove the field. So these are the outstanding balance, but we still have that weird column 1. That is very simple to hide that. When you go to the filter of that column, you will see that also -1 is selected, and you just click OK by hiding it. So now we have a beautiful overview of how much money we can still expect in a short time. Then two more. In this case we got a perfect pivot table, you think maybe? I did all the work already, you know how to do that now. But the missing years I would like to see, so I would like to get this result. In 1981, 1982, etc., to see where we didn't do much, where we didn't hire people or something like that. So how do you do that? We have to change the field settings, and the field settings has a second tab. Okay. So I click on any year, go to the field settings, and notice that if you are not aware of that, there is a second tab, and that has the option show items with no data. The only thing again is you get weird things at the top and the bottom, so you have to click that off, and you have to click that off. If you don't know all these steps, you are very limited in making your pivot tables. One more issue that you may want to know. Here I made a very simple overview. You know how to group seniority now, if it's numeric. And I made a frequency table and the sum of the salaries. The frequency table is a count table. So if you go here to the field settings, you will see that we use the count version there. Notice while we are here that there is also a second tab, and show values as what I showed you earlier. That's where you have the same options as we had before by right clicking on a value. cancelling that. And here I have the sum of the salaries. Now you can also make formulas outside your pivot tables. Let's say you want to know the average salary. So that is the sum of the salary divided by the frequency. If you do that by clicking, you get a lot of extra stuff. Let's say I want in here equals the sum of the salary, and I click on the sum of the salary. And you get the get pivot data function, which looks awful. And it's a lot of work. And divided by the frequency, when you click on it, you get another get pivot data one. So when you enter, it does a good job, of course, but notice you cannot copy it down because it does not adjust, so you have to do it individually. I would avoid all of that and I would just type it there. Let's do it. It may be a little more work in the beginning because you cannot click on a cell, you have to find its address. That is C23 divided by B23, and when I get that one I can copy it down and you get a beautiful overview of the averages. There is much more you probably want to know about Excel. I created for you a CD-ROM with more than 1500 slides. This is what it all does. It includes also pivot tables and many more options that you need to know in order to be very confident with Excel. GenesisPC.com shows you how to get that CD-ROM.